Yo, 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 yo! What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
I'm full of dog goobers. We had
That's a strange how the hell are you?
I'm great.
I love it.
I'm great. We had a puppy play date, and the dogs were all full of drool.
Yes, and they had a lot of fun.
They did,
Yes.
but my pants show that I was around puppies. I'm great, though. I'm great.
Nice.
How are you, Mr. Weedman?
I'm doing awesome, as always.
Good.
As always. We had a good Sunday. We went to see Mount Joy.
We did.
And at the new salt shed in downtown Chicago, which was all the old Morton salt factory. Yeah, it was nice. They're doing it. The indoor part of the venue is not done. The outdoor is pretty sweet. Sound was clear. Mount Joy was great as usual. The second time we've seen them. We like them. They're good, real mellow, just chill. We got baked and had a nice time. We had the perfect little spot, and I think we're getting kind of old. We didn't want to fight.
We were really old.
Yeah. Well, not just old that way. I'm just talking about like. We did not want
chairs.
We did want chairs, but we didn't want to fight through the crowd to get to like. We went off to the side by
But it wasn't like dancey music.
No, but
if it was dancey music or like something heavy hitting, I'd say let's get up there.
I just wanted to chill back though.
Yeah,
it was nice
right,
being like halfway up, off to the right by a pole where we were like not being pushed
we had
and
something
bothered.
to lean against.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, these old knees, boy, I tell you.
Yeah. It was cool.
Nice.
This venue is on the west side of the city. Last year or 2 years ago, during COVID,
we saw him at.
We went to a drive-in concert,
which I still think is the best way to see a show.
On the east side of the city, like on the east side of the skyline, I should say. Like we were just on opposite sides of the city. It was
over by
cool.
the planetarium.
Yeah,
that's where we saw him 2 years ago. This year we were over by, like I said, the Morton Salt Shed along the river, by the Wrigley building. If you don't know where the salt factory's at, so it's over by Wrigley chewing gum factory and office buildings at. So it was kind of cool though. It's a good venue. Our daughter O-Dog works there too, so which was awesome. So we get to go see her too. Good show. It was a good Sunday. And then there's actually a big concert coming up this week. The Secret Rose with the Sacred Rose with Phil Lesh and Black Puma, and I mean the lineup is amazing. I don't have it all in front of me.
3-day festival.
Yeah, 3-day festival over at Geek Seat. I think over the old Toyota Park in Bridgeview. So, but really good stuff. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna go. We were talking about maybe going Friday, but really good lineup. Probably one of the best lineups I've seen out of that Geek Seat or Toyota Park, whatever you want to call it.
Seat Geeks is a place to get tickets.
Yeah, but that's what it's called.
No. Oh, the studio.
The venue is called
that?
Seat Geeks.
Oh.
Yep. So they sponsor
it now.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna smoke, and we are smoking. I'm on day 10. I didn't do it consecutively because I smoked strains 1 or 2 days in a row. So I'm on day 10 of the challenge. I call it the High Times Cannabis Cup, and last night I smoked Escape by Bedford Grow, and we're going to smoke it tonight during the show. It's a sativa, 25.64% THCA. Miss Weedman, you should smoke that bowl that's in front of you. THC 70.77% with a whopping 26 point something percent total cannabinoids. No CBD or CBDA. Terpenes, from what I read, not a lot of information on this strain. Kind of disappointing that they don't put a lot on their jars, but it is a sativa. Terpenes are humulene, pinene, limonene, tourmaline. There's a boatload of them, and I guess this is supposed to be the Mrs. Weedman hit that thing hard.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a Wake and Baker's Dream strain. Now I smoked it yesterday and rated it. It didn't hit me like I thought it would, like some of the other Bedford Grow strains I smoked. It's still a good strain. It smells nice, pretty nug. Got a lot of limonene in there and a lot of pine in there too. So the smell was nice. Nice smell. The high didn't hit me as hard as what I read people talk about on Reddit and stuff like that. But still a good strain. Can I smoke some?
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Weedman's hogging the bowl.
Yeah, I took a pretty big hit there.
You did.
Yeah.
A big rip.
Choking. I thought it was pretty tasty. Now let's see. I took a big rip, so we'll know how strong it is.
Yeah, you'll know in a minute.
But you said you didn't feel like it was a long-lasting high.
It wasn't.
Short-lived.
I got high, but all of a sudden I was like, and I smoked a pretty good amount of that bowl too, and I had it pretty full last night, and the high didn't last very long.
And that's what I'm finding. So I'm doing the judging on the vape cartridges, medical cannabis vape cartridges, which I didn't think about. They didn't really guide you when you're doing your judging. It's like a series of questions about the product that you grade on a scale of 1 to 10, and then a open-ended question that you just have open space to respond to. And I've judged 4 of my products so far, and it dawned on me after submitting that 4th judging that I'm not approaching my reviews from a medical aspect. I was just talking about the taste and the smell and how, like if it was a heady high, body high, and I didn't really rate it based on like, oh, my pain went away. Oh, I was able to sleep well. But then I went back, and it doesn't really guide you to do that either.
No, it doesn't.
You would think it would with the medical cannabis,
Right.
that they'd be looking for medical explanations of the product. Anyway.
Yeah. And I did the medical flower. I put some stuff if it helped me sleep, but if it didn't, I didn't put it in.
Right.
You
But
know?
what I have found that I'm quite surprised with, most of my vape cartridges are RSO. Most of them are hybrids.
Live resin.
So they're heavy hitters. They should be, and it's medical, so you have a little higher THC, right? So
My favorite one so far we've smoked is that Sunshine OG. That's been my favorite.
what I've found is that it's surprisingly, I would expect that I would take a little hit off of the pen and feel very high, and I don't. And what I found works really well with those vape pens, even though they're heavy hitting strains, it's almost like you have to build up your high. It's like you take a hit, and then maybe in 15, 20 minutes you take another hit, and you do that for a series of 4 or 5 hits over maybe a couple hours of time, and then you feel high. It's I maybe I'm not using it right, but I don't know. I just found with the RSOs, that's been a better result.
You mean the
for me.
live resin?
And well, yeah,
Some of them
but
are live
some
resin,
of them are
right.
RSO.
Yeah. I don't know. I had to smoke a lot of those pens to get high, and I don't like that.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
you expect.
I know our tolerance is pretty good, but still.
But it is a nice high.
Yes.
If you kind of build it.
Yeah, it's
It's
true.
nice, and it lasts for some time.
We built it up pretty good at Mount Joy. I was hitting that pen like every 10 minutes. I was taking a little, just a nice little rip, and I was nice and even keeled through the show. It was nice. I still think the Sunshine OG is the best one out of all
Yeah,
those
it is
strains,
good.
though. That's the one I've been using every night, and it's been
Oh
lights
no, I
out.
like I've got a it's a VRSO, the Spectra.
Oh yeah,
That's
one.
nice. I keep that on the bedside table.
Yeah, that one's a
Nuggy.
1 to 5. That thing is wonderful too. So that one was
great.
pretty good too. But there's a couple of them that we've smoked that have just been meh,
Meh.
meh. So you ready to start the show? Mm-hmm. All right. Untapped roots, an overlooked source of medicine. A recent resurgence in the cannabis plant as a result of many regions' lessenings prohibition has caused a global shakeup in attitudes towards the plant and the products it provides for humans, largely for the better. One of the most common recited benefits of cannabis is a huge diversity of uses the plant has, from hemp-based supercapacitators and hemp clothing to high-value medicines from cannabinoid-rich cultivars, yet this almost exclusively refers to the aerial parts of the plant only. One aspect of the plant that seems to get little to no attention is the utilization of plant roots. I've talked about plant roots before. This is more in depth. So, a Google Scholar and PubMed search provides some evidence that this is an understudied part of the plant, although it is not an exact metric, nor is it highly scientific. The number of results is indicative of the number of publications, which gives some context to the point that the plant itself is understudied. But the roots have not yet been featured of many studies, and in fact have been largely ignored by those publishing in scientific journals. So Google Scholar title Cannabis Roots only 45 different titles, and in PubMed only 6. Compared to the cannabis plant, which has 349 on Google Scholar and PubMed 281, and in just cannabis titles 74,000 on Google Scholar and 20,176 on PubMed. Interesting. The mechanism. Historically, the cannabis root has been used for numerous remedies. Therefore, the cannabis research community should be investigating the effectiveness of this relatively ignored plant part. Literature explaining the use of cannabis roots in a medical context spans back hundreds of years and covers a broad range of conditions. From joint pain to gout to skin burns and childbirth, there exists numerous historical documentation of many different types of applications for many different conditions, originating from all corners of the world. Reports of using boiled cannabis roots in different applications are one of the more common preparation methods. And it's all hidden, ladies and gentlemen, for so many years. For cataplasm and compressed to oral administration in various forms, many different cultures have documented the use of cannabis roots in their treatment of the sick. Despite this historical documentation, there has been a deafening silence of this subject since the recent resurgence. However, many of the molecules found in the root are described, admittedly via extraction from other plants and other studies, and these provide the building blocks for studies going forward, notably the roots of Panax ginseng. I love ginseng. What's the root cause? The cannabis plant produces hundreds, if not thousands, of phytochemicals, which are varying concentrations from cultivar to cultivar. The chemical composition of the root of the cannabis plant will no doubt also vary depending on the lineage of the cultivar. However, the phytochemicals, which has been shown to constitute the chemical makeup of the roots, include, I'm going to butcher some of these words, I'm sorry, terpenoids, monoterpenes, alkaloids, phytotesterols, which is the steroids, although rich in active molecules. A thesis out of King's College London in 2009 by Dr. D.J. Potter showed the roots are practically devoid of cannabinoids. The active ingredients in the plant roots are still to be fully investigated in terms of their effectiveness of treating human conditions, and much likely many aerial-produced phytochemicals remain untested, especially in the clinical level. However, as the industry moves forward, more and more reports of clinical trials using full-spectrum extracts and isolates are coming through. Eventually, and hopefully not in all distant future, there may be a time when the phytochemicals are more fully explored and focus starts to shift towards a lesser-known constitutes, such as the triterpenoids, triterpenoids, triterpenoids. The triterpenoids, which have been found in cannabis plant roots, include the molecules fridelian and epifridelianol. Why do I always get the hard words? Mm-hmm. And these have been shown to have many effects on mammalian biology. Fridelian, extracted from Azemia Mrs. Weedman's busting my chops. From Azemia tetracanatha bee sting bush, has been shown to be effective in reducing inflammation, fever, and certain types of pain in rodent studies. It also has shown promising signs as a powerful antidiuretic, effective in treating gastric ulcers and treating diabetes in rodents. Those mice, man. In addition, fridelian as estrogenetic activity has been shown to improve sexual activity in rodents. Damn those mice. And has been used to treat sexual transmitted disease such as syphilis in humans. And that came out of Oswar et al. 2010. The other triterpenoid isolated from the cannabis root is epifridelianol. This has been shown as a powerful antitumor. Mrs. Weedman, help me out. No,
I can't follow.
Anti-tumor. Oh, anti-tumor agent, as well as protecting. I'm baked too, so I feel you. As well as protecting against photoaging in humans and preventing human cells replication in vitro. Epifridelianol also shows anti-inflammatory activity, has been reported effective in ovarian cancer treatments, as has similar properties to an FDA-approved pharmaceutical used to treat the condition. So I grow, and before I read the conclusion, I grow in soil. I have a ton of roots, but I never use the roots because they're always just covered in dirt, and you'd have to really wash them, which you could probably do. It'd take some time. But people who grow hydroponically and you get those root balls, man, I would love to test those out. Make some tea and boil it up and drink it and use it in different things. It'd be pretty dope. I'm going to try it with this next grow I got going on here. Really clean those roots out and see what I can do, what kind of tea I can make. Because I did make that tea I did that big trim and I made that big batch of tea, and I had such a nice, wonderful body high for hours upon hours. So it's been great. So the conclusion. There are many other phytochemicals extracted from cannabis roots, such as monoterpenes, carvone, and oh my god, these words, dihydrocarbone, and phytostrols, such as cisterol and campesterol, and alkaloids such as cannabisativine and the nutrient choline. Mrs. Weedman dying right now. Each of these molecules has a story of its own in terms of its potential use in modern medicine and how it interacts with the human body. However, much like the full spectrum versus isolate argument, perhaps whole extract will provide a more potent effect than single molecule extracts. This leads to the question if the entourage effect is indeed more powerful than any isolate. Should this be a whole plant extract rather than just extraction of the aerial parts of the plant? Would that provide a greater effect than the sum of its parts? These are but just a few areas needing further study. And although whole extract may provide a greater all-in-one medicine, each component of the plant's chemistry, we will need to be examined individually to better understand what each is doing for the body. Again, this is something that will take a fair amount of time, money, and resources, but no doubt these studies provide many alternatives to the pharmaceutical options currently positioned in the forefront of medical care. If you're a home grower or you're a grower and you can get yourself on some roots, I would try looking up some recipes. There's got to be some recipes out there, some medicine. You can grind it down, clean it out, grind it down, make a tea out of it, use the stems and the leaves, but start off with the roots too. Like I did the leaves and I felt great. So the next is the roots and stems. So there was really a lot about synthetic cannabis a long time ago. Remember a lot of those news, people were dying and jumping through windows, taking that K2 and spice and all that shit. We found some more research, and Mrs. Weedman is going to tell you what about synthetic cannabis, Mrs. Weedman.
Yes. This is an article about synthetic cannabis and what is it? You've probably never heard of it, but synthetic cannabis made its entry. No, now that I'm reading, I'm realizing why you were struggling.
Hi.
Yeah, this is a very, very heady high.
Yes, it is very
It's
heady.
like boggling my brain.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start over. You've probably never heard of it, but synthetic cannabis made its entry into the market in 2002. It's sold as an alternative to cannabis, also known as fake weed, fake marijuana, K2, spice. Some people get confused between real and synthetic cannabis. Like most things, there's a difference between fake and the original. Although the name synthetic marijuana suggests it's an alternative to cannabis, there's a world of difference between the two. There was a time when cannabis was illegal in many places. Later, as it was made legal, rumors spread that even synthetic cannabis is legal. As a result, more people used it and had to bear severe consequences. Unlike cannabis that has been responsible for 0 casualties, synthetic marijuana has killed a few people. Simply put, synthetic cannabis is a hardcore designer drug. Nothing more, nothing less. Although it's called marijuana, do not assume it works like the plant. It's anything but natural and is usually created in labs just like other drugs like cocaine and meth. Originally, it was made to help scientists study the depths of the cannabinoid system. However, it was misused, and that has resulted in it being available on the streets. So how do you differentiate between synthetic and natural cannabis? If you've ever used real cannabis, this one shouldn't be difficult. You already know what the original looks like, feels like, smells like, so you should be able to differentiate. The appearance is one factor. Traditional cannabis buds look like little nuggets of resin. They look like sugar-coated leaves and flowers compressed together. No matter where you purchase real cannabis, it will be sold as a whole bud. All buds may not look exactly alike, even if they're from the same strain, but they are certainly from one plant, and that's cannabis. On the other hand, synthetic cannabis is ground up already. It appears like leaves and bits of many plants just thrown together. Sometimes it looks like grass, but at other times it looks like potpourri of different plants. Another way to recognize the difference is touch. Real cannabis is dank and moist. The buds will not be too moist, though, but they will also not be too dry. The texture is somewhere in between. You'll also feel the stickiness when you touch the buds, something every user loves. The stickiness is due to the trichomes found in the bud. Terpenes are the essential oils of the cannabis plant and aren't unique to cannabis alone. This is one reason why cannabis offers so many medicinal benefits. Synthetic cannabis doesn't produce any sort of resin. It isn't sticky or dank, and on the contrary, it is dry and shapeless. Another way to tell is smell. Pure cannabis smells differently depending on the strain. For instance, green crack smells like mangoes, while Skittles emits a distinct fragrance of fruit. Some may even smell like unwashed socks or rotten cheese. It just depends on the terpene profile. Anyone that has used real weed will agree that the fragrance plays a key role in identifying high-quality cannabis. Synthetic marijuana smells like chemicals. Some strains of pure cannabis do have a chemical-like fragrance, such as sour diesel. But it's easy for you to know the difference because K2 will never smell like real weed, no matter how hard they try in a lab. It'll be a little funky or musky, but it will still have that underlying chemical smell. And then you have taste. It's always a treat to take a deep hit of your favorite strain and enjoy the combination of rich flavors on your tongue. Like the fragrance, the flavor also depends on the strain and the way the herb is grown. But regardless of the strain, the flavors are usually mind-blowing and make you yearn for more. Synthetic marijuana tastes like a bunch of chemicals thrown together. It may also taste like burnt grass at times. The taste is so weird that you may end up coughing, not because of the high it produces, but due to the gagging feeling you'll experience. And then there are dangers involved in synthetic cannabis. It produces effects very similar to THC or tetrahydrocannabinol. THC is the cannabinoid present naturally in the cannabis plant and is responsible for the psychoactive effect that you feel when you ingest or smoke cannabis. However, THC, despite its psychotropic effects, has a range of medicinal benefits and is used in high doses to help with various illnesses. The same cannot be held true for synthetic cannabis. Once you smoke synthetic K2 or spice, however they call it, you may experience hallucinations in a matter of hours. The high may not last as long as the high that you would feel when you smoke real cannabis either. To top it off, you may feel a tightness in your chest and your lungs after you've smoked. It's quite difficult to get rid of it. Like regular cannabis, fake cannabis can be smoked, vaped, or mixed with edibles. Instead of gaining medical benefits, you'll only feel a heaviness that cannot be described in words. Real cannabis produces a cerebral high, and you actually enjoy the way it takes the stress away from your body. But fake cannabis will only make you feel heavy and sluggish. Real bud will also get creative juices flowing, while fake does no such thing. Fake cannabis works like THC. Just like THC binds to the cannabinoid receptors found in the human body, it latches to the CB1 receptors and produces a euphoria that's eerily familiar with THC. However, they bind with a higher affinity compared to pure THC. Fake weed may produce some effects that make you feel like you're consuming real cannabis, but the problem is that it's much stronger than real THC. Made primarily to help researchers, it didn't take long for unscrupulous manufacturers to make their own versions and release it to market. Fake weed is usually prepared by combining several solvents, including acetone and high-proof alcohol. No wonder your throat feels like it's on fire when you smoke it. Due to its potency, headaches, blackouts, panic attacks, and kidney failure can be expected. Basically, you're consuming too many chemicals at once if you're smoking or ingesting fake weed. Also known as nitro, syncans, or synthetic cannabinoids, it can wreak havoc on you and produce side effects that include hallucinations, rapid heartbeat, breathlessness, bouts of coughing, muscle spasms, elevated blood pressure, headache, nausea, chest pain, and vomiting, and more. In extreme cases, you may even experience a heart attack. Yes, it can be fatal. From strokes to seizures and psychosis, a lot can happen if you meddle with fake cannabis. The rates of emergency department visits and long hospital admissions are much, much higher than with natural cannabis. There are a few reasons behind this, but it is mostly thankful to the fact that it can be synthesized up to 200 times stronger than regular weed. It is also a totally unregulated field. And while governments worldwide are continually banning the chemicals that make up synthetic cannabis, the producers only have to make tiny changes to the chemical structure to skirt the laws. These unscrupulous synthetic drug producers are constantly one step ahead of the law, and they also sometimes add non cannabinoid chemicals to increase the levels of psychoactivity in their products without labeling it in any way whatsoever. And there are addictive issues that plague synthetic cannabinoid users. Continued abuse of synthetic weed can lead to a wide range of issues, with some medical professionals saying that the addiction can be harder to break than that of opioids. There's an endless list of stories of patients entering psychotic states for weeks at a time, and the risk of seizures. If the user quits cold turkey, it can be seemingly large. The risk is large for seizures. So in our humble opinion, there's really no place in modern society for these type of synthetic drugs. Instead of risking your health, grab some real weed. In this day and age, with almost endless lists of amazing genetics at your fingertips and so much information available, why would you smoke anything but the beautiful, natural cannabis?
Yeah.
Always exercise caution and purchase cannabis through a reputable source or grow it at home.
Grow it at home.
Don't smoke that fake shit.
Yeah. Time for a change.
Crazy.
Federal ban on cannabis use causes more harm than good. A decade ago, Americans were nearly evenly split on whether to legalize cannabis. While half the country favored revising U.S. drug laws to make room for legal cannabis, the other half said to keep cannabis prohibition in its place. Public opinion has since shifted dramatically. Now more than two-thirds of the country favors legalization. That includes 83% of Democrats, 71% of independents, and 50% of Republicans, according to Gallup polling. But just because a proposal is popular doesn't mean it's always wise. Now that Democrats are in the Senate, they've introduced a package of proposed cannabis policy reforms along with a commitment to work with Republicans to get something done this year. It's time to look back on what they have done and learn in the recent years and rethink the position. More and more states contradict federal cannabis laws. A decade ago, none of the states had legalized cannabis for recreational use. That began to change in 2012 when Colorado and Washington authorized the adult use programs. Now a majority of states have laws and permit cannabis in certain circumstances. 19 states allow cannabis for medical or recreational use. 18 states allow cannabis for medical purposes only. 10 more states allow products with non-psychoactive compounds. 2 U.S. territories and Washington, D.C. also have legalized recreational cannabis. 3 states, Idaho, Kansas, and Nebraska, do not allow any cannabis products at all. Despite these state laws, cannabis possession is still a federal crime. As far as federal law is concerned, buying cannabis in a state-authorized storefront is just as illegal as purchasing it from a plug. Federal law enforcement policies are, of course, another matter. The Justice Department has generally taken a hands-off approach in recent years related to the state legal cannabis operations, but the highlights that glaring contradictions in U.S. drug policy. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has called the federal government's approach a half-in, half-out regimen that simultaneously tolerates and forbids local use of cannabis, resulting in an unstable state of affairs that strains basic principles of federalism and conceals traps for the unwary. The consequences for lives and livelihoods of the American people have become too widespread and absurd to ignore. This editorial noted concerns in 2018 that legalizing cannabis could lead to higher rates of use among teenagers and children, but the data from Colorado and Washington, where recreational pot sales began in 2014, indicates this didn't happen. The Benile Healthy Kids Colorado survey found that reported rates of cannabis use among high school students held relatively steadily, fluctuating between 19 and 22% from 2005 to 2019. Keeping it roughly in line with national average, the figure dropped significantly to just 13.3% for Colorado teens in 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Benile Washington State Healthy Youth Survey similarly found no significant trends over time and reported cannabis use among students, middle school and high school from 2006 to 2018, which means legalization did not lead in spikes in teen cannabis use there either. That's pretty good. Even so, other researchers warn that pre-existing downward trends in cannabis use among teens could be masking the detrimental effects of legalization. Regardless of whether Congress legalizes cannabis federally, policymakers must keep a careful eye on the evolving body of research. Cannabis isn't harmless, especially for young people. They do say the brain develops until you're 22, right? So that's why they always say that as a young person shouldn't smoke cannabis because of brain development. I don't know. Then more research needs to be done. While legalization proponents might have overhyped the medicinal benefits of cannabis, there's ample evidence that it could be useful in soothing chronic pain and symptoms of certain ailments. So it makes no sense for cannabis to still be listed as a Schedule I drug under federal law. It's all about control, people. All about control. Legalizing cannabis at the state level has spurred impressive business growth with direct and indirect benefits. At the same time, the idea that legal cannabis will supplement illegal sales hasn't always panned out. In California, where voters used a ballot initiative in 2016 to legalize personal use and cultivation, the illicit market is still bigger than the legal market. High taxes and bureaucracy seem to be to blame. So, man, we know what's going on. It's all about like control. Why cannabis became illegal and the future of the legalization. Okay? No serious conversation about cannabis legalization can be ignored. The key role prohibition has played in the war on drugs, which has disproportionately harmed Black and Indigenous Americans and other people of color and continues to do so. Hundreds of thousands of cannabis arrests have been carried out each year in the past 50 years, often pulling people out of their communities and complicating their ability to find work, housing, and opportunities. Those who have been penalized for cannabis crimes are disproportionately Black and brown, while those who have capitalized on legalized pot are overwhelmingly white. The strongest argument for Congress to end federal cannabis prohibition finds the roots in the far-reaching harms of disparities that stem from its criminalization. The nation's misguided war on drugs will continue inflicting harm until cannabis is decriminalized. That's all the government needs to do. Just decriminalize it. Let people grow it at home, do what they want to do with it. Just get it off. Let people grow it like a plant. Nonetheless, decriminalization alone is not enough. Given the risks associated with cannabis, the nation needs the federal government to shift the posture from prohibition to regulation. To make the shift effectively, Congress needs to take a hands-on approach. No, they'll fuck it up. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future. Dosing. Cannabis oil. We don't talk a lot about cannabis oils.
No.
We've made some tinctures in our past and used it to infuse stuff, but we don't talk enough about it. And I know there's a lot of people that need cannabis oil because they can't smoke it.
Right.
So what's the beginner's guide to dosing cannabis oil at home?
Well, cannabis oil is one of the most versatile substances to have in your home. It can be used for any cannabis edible, from pot brownies to weed stir fry. A well-dosed cannabis oil will give you a great high and may also help with sleep, pain relief, and relaxation. Homemade cannabis infused oil is much more potent than hemp oil or a CBD-only oil because it uses the entire plant, often called full spectrum. A full spectrum oil not only contains CBD, but also the plant's other cannabinoids, including THC, CBN, and more. These cannabinoids all work in unison to make their effects stronger, a phenomenon. Isn't there a song? That's a phenomenon. Known as the entourage effect. When it comes to the high, a little bit of cannabis oil goes a long way. Edibles have been found to offer effects 5 times as strong as smoking the same amount of cannabis. This is because when it's digested, THC passes through the liver and becomes 11-hydroxy-THC. This chemical change brings with it a strong body high. That's why dosing correctly is important. Once you get the steps down, making cannabis-infused oil at home is easy. You can use a household item like a pot, mason jars, and a strainer. Just keep in mind the type of oil you use, along with the best strain of cannabis for your needs. Cannabis is fat soluble, which means it must bind to fat molecules in order to be digested. It's not possible to make fat-free edibles. The best oil for making cannabis cooking oil are the best oils for making cannabis cooking oil are olive, coconut, and avocado oil. Choosing the oil depends on what the recipe might be calling for and how it pairs with what you're making, says Christina Wong, who formerly worked at the California-based edible and topical company Papa and Barkley, and even flexed her cannabis baking skills on Hulu's Baker's Dozen. Coconut oil is best for the most efficient THC infusion, but the overpowering coconut scent doesn't go well with everything you cook. Experts often recommend starting with olive oil because there are added health benefits. This is attributed to the antioxidants and the anti-inflammatory properties in olive oil, says Felicity Chen, CEO and founder of Potly, a cannabis-infused olive oil and edible producer in California, with a national line featuring CBD oil. The good fats in the olive make it a perfect carrier for cannabis, says Chen, who uses locally produced California olive oil in her infusions. For cooking, choose a strain of cannabis that smells good and is fragrant. Chances are it contains terpenes that would taste equally great in cannabis oil. I use 7 grams of a strain called Grape Pie. It contains my favorite terpenes, limonene, myrcene, which give the cannabis an herbal, fruity, and sweet flavor. Then this article goes into like ratios of olive oil to cannabis and then a proper formula or recipe to make cannabis oils. So we'll put the link for this in the podcast this week. But
Yeah, 'cause
then
it's pretty long how to make everything. So
Yeah.
you'll want to read the instructions.
yeah, but they talk about the process, the recipe, straining it, and then storing it. After you've made the oil, you want to store it in an airtight container, preferably glass. Glass will help the oil last longer, and it's considered a neutral substance, so it won't add anything unwanted to your oil, like potential microplastics or flavors. You can store it at room temperature in a cool, dark place, like a cupboard. Light degrades its quality, so less light is better, and it will last for 6 months if stored properly.
Nice.
So, how do you dose with it? Dosing edibles is important. It will make the experience more enjoyable if you know the right dosage for your desired effect. Edibles affect each individual differently, depending on our genetics, age, gender, weight, and tolerance. Remember that the effect of edibles is much stronger than smoking because of the chemical process when metabolizing them. When dosing edible cannabis oil, make sure to start low and build. Our weed oil recipe is made with a 1-to-1 ratio of 1 cup of oil with about 1 cup of ground cannabis. The ratio estimates that a teaspoon would contain 3 to 5 milligrams of THC. So then they go on and talk about, being careful, learning your dosing and tolerance. And they say an important component of dosing is knowing the THCA percentage of the cannabis that you're using. So in the legal market, they're printed right on your container, right? Most cannabis contains anywhere from 20% THCA to 35% THCA. The higher the potency, the stronger your oil. Remember, despite all of the math, this dosing equation is just an estimate. Each batch of cannabis oil will have a slightly different dose, and you'll need to tinker and experiment to find the right dose for you.
You said tinker.
Tinker. And then they go in to talk about different ways you can use the oil. You can cook with it. You can, basically substitute it in recipes for any oil or a portion of the oil in a recipe. You can make salad dressings.
We did.
Yeah, you can make focaccia bread with it. This person said a popular and effective option is to bake with it. I didn't think about this, though, that you should not exceed 340 degrees Fahrenheit during your baking process because you could lose and burn off cannabinoids and terpenes. So all in all, it takes time to discover what your sweet spot is for dosage. Cannabis oils are so versatile, says Wong. Once you learn the rules of how to infuse and cook with cannabis oil, anything is possible.
We like cannabis oil.
Yeah.
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 We've done it. Jersey, recreational cannabis sales since launching on 4/20 is $80 million. Pretty good. That was until June 30th, and $4.6 million in tax revenue since they launched. Pretty good. North Dakota recreational cannabis legalization initiative makes the fall ballot, and the governor said if it passes, she'll make sure. That's South Dakota. North Dakota recreational cannabis legalization initiative makes fall ballot. South Dakota, it made the ballot again. Again, don't forget it did pass. If it passes, the governor says she's going to make sure it goes through. We'll see. Alabama regulators approve rules for medical cannabis program. Finally. Oh my God. Didn't we talk about Alabama like a year ago in their laws with their suppositories, right?
Yep.
And now they're finally 2023 is when it's going to be all ready to go for suppositories. Great stuff. So once again, South Dakota voter approved legalization. She said she'll try to get it on the board. Here's the big one. Florida activists plan cannabis homegrown initiative for 2024 to run parallel to the industry-backed legalization bill. Florida, you missed it by 2%. of the vote last time. 2%. This is even bigger than the last one. If I know you have to wait till 2024, but this one is big because you can get home grow. I don't give a fuck what you got to do, who you got to move, who you got to vote out to vote in to get this. If you have to go out and hand flyers out to everybody walking out of dispensaries, if you want this to happen in your state to go rec and to home grow, I talk about home grow all the time. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't pass this law, you're going to hate yourselves for a long time. So whoever you got to talk to, that 2%ers out there that did not vote for it, that you missed it by, go get them. Get them. Because it's foolish for you not to have this passed. And the home grow is big. And don't let those cannabis companies down there not let it get on the ballot, because you will be pissed. Okay? Tennessee's first cannabis restaurant opens in Nashville. How does this happen? We talked about it. They use hemp-derived THC to be able to serve it in their restaurant. Buds and Brews. We know Buds and Brews because they put the Zenko on the table and got the 9.4 million views out of their restaurant by I mean, pretty cool. It's basically just a place for it's a restaurant bar. Cannabis is friendly. But they do all different types of food that are like moonlock roasted tots and nachos, buds and burgers, wake and bake tacos kind of place. So it's fun. But they are letting you like smoke like THC, hemp derived THC. Pretty cool. Good luck. That's the first one to open up. Man, good for them. And it's not even legal in that state, even medical either. Ballsy. Love it. The point that we don't get high anymore.
Whoa.
There is a point, right?
I haven't gotten there.
But I know people that have.
Yeah. People will take a tolerance break because they feel like they're just not getting anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us about the THC limit and the point that you don't get higher.
Well, our standard way of thinking about drugs is that the more drugs you take, the more intense an experience you'll have. In this model, not only does more mean intensity, but it also means the possibility of taking too much and overdosing. Can this happen with cannabis? According to research, THC has a limit, and if you keep smoking past it, you don't get higher. Take a look. Do we have THC limits within us? Is there a point of smoking when we don't get higher, no matter how much we smoke? According to research and life, yes, there is. Our 100% independent news publication focuses on stories in the growing cannabis and psychedelic spaces. We provide the Cannadelics weekly newsletters for readers to stay updated and offer tons of deals for products. Okay, I didn't do a good job editing this one. So this article they're talking about where it's where they share this article. Anyway, we're going to move on here. I'm so high. I usually do a little better proofreading through my stuff. Well, before getting to the study and the official documentation, let's first think about smoking behavior. Sure, not everyone is a giant pothead, but there are plenty of giant potheads out there, and even lower level smokers might encounter a specific time period of mass smoking whereby they can assess the situation of what happens with increased amounts of THC. If you keep taking opioids, you'll get super high, and then eventually you'll take too much for your system to handle the depressive aspects of the drug, and your body will shut down. We call that an overdose. Many drugs lead to death when taken too much, by essentially flooding the body with a compound it can't remove fast enough or balance the effects of for regular function. Some drugs are more likely to kill than others, but even a non-fatal reaction can result in a seizure, unconsciousness, or bodily injury of some kind. However, this isn't the case for all drugs, and technically for pot. We know this doesn't happen. Fatally, it just doesn't happen. We know people don't die from pot because there are no death statistics. There's none. They don't exist.
Nope.
And because no one has seen it happen before. But what does that mean for super heavy smokers? Are they simply never getting to the death limit, or is there no limit to get to? And if it won't cause death, does it mean it stops working at some point? Standard Life tells us yes. As a regular smoker myself and a sometimes full-out pothead, I'm well aware that if I take toke after toke after toke, that eventually I'm not going to feel any difference anymore. After a certain point, my brain will remain at the same level of mush and I don't get higher, despite possibly smoking way, way more. I might burn my throat if my smoking joints set my asthma off, but I'm not going to enter into some new high headspace with each new drag. Technically, every smoker knows this, even if they've never thought about it logically. For one thing, if we did continue to get higher and higher, it would be written about extensively, and it's not at all. And another thing that seems is the seeming inability to die indicates that at a certain point there is no further bodily response. A couple of years ago, a study came out that helped show this logic and which backs up the idea that with THC there is a limit, and after that limit, smokers don't get high. The study in question is called Association of Naturalistic Administration of Cannabis Flower and Concentrates with Intoxication and Impairment. The goal of the study was to assess if there is an association of legal market cannabis flower and concentrates with cannabis intoxication and neurobehavior impairment. So, basically, do we smoke too much? The art of microdosing pot. In order to do this, study researchers designated a cohort study with 121 cannabis flower and concentrate users. The participants were in groups per their choice of general product, flower or concentrate, and then randomly split within user groups into two groups, a higher THC product group and a lower THC product group. The study used legal market cannabis flower for the flower group, with a range of 16 to 24% THC, and concentrates with 70 to 90% THC for the concentrate group. 55 of the participants used cannabis flower, and 66 of the participants used concentrates. Investigators measured plasma cannabinoid levels, as well as subjective drug intoxication of the users, and performance results on a range of neurobehavioral tasks to test attention, memory, inhibitory control, and balance. Researchers found that it didn't matter which product the participants used, flower versus concentrate, as users showed similar behavior on a neural level after acute use. The concentrates caused uniformly higher THC blood plasma levels across the board. In nearly all metrics, though, neurobehavioral measures were not changed by short-term cannabis use. There was a delay and impairment of verbal memory and balance in general, but apart from these factors, there was no different outcome based on the type of product or potency level. That's interesting. Researchers concluded that though cannabis concentrates provided higher THC exposure, that the difference in subjective and neurobehavioral impairments in the short term is not specifically associated with the strength of the product used. According to researchers, in general, across most cognitive measures, acute performance changes following cannabis use were minimal. In one exception, delayed verbal recall performance was impaired after use, which is consistent with prior work demonstrating reliable cannabis-associated impairment in this memory domain. And that across forms of cannabis and potencies, users' domains of verbal memory and proprioception focused postural stability these are just words right now. Nothing's making sense to me. Focused postural stability were primarily associated with THC administration. All right. One limitation of the study was that there was no control group used, so all participants received THC with no group which did not. Investigators were also required to go by the federal mandate, which restricted drug dosing, as well as control of other aspects of administration. A last restriction, they had to pre-assign the major groups of flower users versus concentrate users based on pre-existing user behavior due to ethical limitations. Even with these limitations, though, the results still say a lot about how little the effects change when a person has more THC. So what does this even mean? While the researchers weren't testing to see what level a person stopped breathing or keeled over and died, the research pointed out why we don't need to worry about these things with cannabis. If low and high THC users essentially show the same functional reactivity, it indicates that past a point, no further effect is felt by increasing THC. Though this doesn't provide a direct answer as to whether a person can die from too much THC or too much cannabis in general, it does imply that death is unlikely, even when the body is being pushed past a limit. After a point, the body can no longer handle, it'll just shut down and change in some other way. The study implies that though THC plasma levels increase and though some neurobehavioral changes occur, the results are effectively the same regardless of your THC amount. So it's kind of redundant here, but the study backs up why there's no death count for marijuana. It might not explain why the body reacts the way it does, but it does show a certain ability to withstand increased amounts of THC. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, very.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm too high for that article. But it is very interesting because
well, escape got you to escape.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. There's times where you're definitely more baked than you normally would get. Like you get super baked, but there is kind of like then you don't get more high.
No. Your body can only take so much of being how high can you actually really get. I mean, I've been high.
Right.
But I mean, eventually you don't get any higher. You're just high. And that's it. Unless you're slumped and sleeping. Then you smoked yourself out. Yeah. International news. Colombia's new president talks up cannabis legalization, freeing prisoners and exporting cannabis to other countries. And the United States can't even figure out the laws yet. Cannabis products are booming in Thailand. Of course they are, because it's fucking legal and free. Not free to buy, but free. Freedom. Don't panic, it's organic. It's written on the window of a coffee shop in Bangkok. Thailand's government has not been so relaxed about the consumption of cannabis for very long. In 2018, cannabis was initially only legalized for medical purposes, and only since June 2022 has the cultivation use of cannabis been decriminalized. In the past, its offenses have resulted in imprisonment and even death penalty. Ooh, jeez. The new economic development plan, though, and suddenly, Thailand shows its liberal side. The government has even gives away cannabis plants to encourage farmers to grow them. It only requires registration of the Pluk Ganja app. In addition to commercial cultivation, private cultivation is also legal, limited to just a few plants. That's pretty good. Because cannabis is considered a crop, there's no longer any limits into creativity. And that's awesome. And so completely new businesses, ideas, and product lines are developed out of nothing. The Ministry of Health says it has approved 1,181 products, including cosmetics and edibles containing cannabis extracts, and expects the industry to earn up to $15 billion in their dollars, and it's $435.16 million in U.S. dollars by 2026. That's pretty good. 15-course menu with hemps. The Thai restaurants in Bangkok are now offering hemp menus, and they're using whole weeds and has garlic cannabis chips and lavender cannabis tea and cannabis chocolate brownies on its menu. The Umi Organic Cafe offers cannabis extract juices and green oatmeal, hash cookies, and Japanese restaurant Coco serves 15-ounce course of hemp-infused meals. There are cannabis cooking classes, weed and wine dinners, cannabis spa massages, gum-soothing cannabis extract toothpaste, and much more. All offers can be only used by clients over the age of 20. And the new gourmet wellness and relaxation products must not exceed a certain content of intoxication, THC. Officially, commercials products approved by the Food and Drug Administration must contain CBD and chemical found in cannabis. We know that. So, Thailand, man, just banging, killing it. And here's another one. Okay? Swiss pharmacies will price medical cannabis according to black market prices. Smart. Try to take people away from the traditional market, bring them into the legal market, and now you know where you're getting it from and where it's being grown and all that stuff. I think it's smart. I think it's very smart. Still should just let people grow their own weed. So, but good for you, Swiss. Good for you, Swiss pharmacies. I'm baked.
Good for you, Swiss.
Yes. We talk about edibles a lot. We always do because we love them. The one thing we've never been able to really dial in is the THC dosage. We always just estimate.
Yep.
How do you calculate it? This is the one thing that we've been trying to figure out, just doing it by ourselves.
Well, because there's a lot of human error involved in it. A lot of it is guesstimating.
Yes.
Because we don't, when we're cooking at home, we don't have the capability to test the cannabis. If it's your home grow, you don't really know the potency of it and the breakdown of it, right? So, but there are some basic rules for calculating THC dosages. Dude, I ate way too many brownies. We've all been there, right?
Yes.
We've all been there. Yep. Or perhaps on the opposite, you had some cannabis edibles and ended up feeling absolutely nothing, right? We've all been there. We honestly don't know what's worse. This is why calculating the right THC dosage is crucial to make sure you enjoy your cannabis edibles to the fullest and you don't end up heading straight to bed. When it comes to cannabis edibles, consuming the right THC dosage is the safest and most straightforward way of getting the best possible effect. The main goal should be to relax, feel good, and have a nice time without overdoing it. There's a few things you need to know. When you're planning to cook some tasty cannabis edibles, a frequent question that you might be asking yourself is, how much weed should I put in the recipe? Before finding the perfect THC dosage for your cannabis edibles, you'll have to take into consideration various factors that may influence your trip. Your THC tolerance. It's only reasonable to say that a regular cannabis smoker has a higher THC tolerance and will probably need to have a bigger dosage for their cannabis edible than a first timer. We don't want that to sound sexist, but in comparison to men, women will likely need lower doses than men to get to the same level of high. However, this can also vary depending on other factors like body size and mentality. But usually, paying attention to the THC tolerance is a rule we recommend standing by for first-time users. Then there's body, your build, your frame. Again, we don't mean any offenses, but a big aspect to take into account when calculating the right dose for your edible is the general size of the consumer. A skinny and rather small-build person will logically need lower doses than a tall or heavyweight consumer. The same goes for men and women. Men tend to have a bigger and heavier build than women. Therefore, they'll need to eat a little more than the woman would, right? Your state of mind. It may sound surprising, but having the right state of mind when approaching your cannabis edibles may have the biggest impact on the type of high you'll get. Ideally, you should be feeling relaxed, confident, and happy, rather happy when taking your special edible or infusion. Normally, feelings of stress, anxiety, insecurities, and negative feelings overall are not a good match with edibles. These kind of feelings may become more intense when you're high and could worsen things instead of allowing you to feel relaxed. And your weed quality. This one practically explains itself. The better the weed, the higher you'll get, and the smaller amount that's needed, and vice versa. The first thing you'll need to check to calculate the right amount of THC for your cannabis edibles is the THC percentage present in your weed strain. A well-grown and strong strain usually contains around 20% THC. However, not everyone knows how to grow cannabis perfectly, and this leads to lower weed quality, which results in lower THC levels. Therefore, you'll need bigger doses of edibles to get high. The perfect strain for cooking edibles is the powerful Gorilla Cookies Auto, containing the highest THC levels, up to 27%. And you've got your environment and your surroundings. Just like the correct state of mind can have a big influence on the effects of the edibles, it's also important to pay attention to your environment of choice. When you take your edibles or infusions, try to find a place where you feel comfortable and relaxed and distraction-free. Cannabis is known for waking up all of your senses. Therefore, a hectic and hype place is probably not the best place to consume. We recommend going somewhere where you've been, a place that's familiar, perhaps at home where you feel safe. The sun is shining outside, and why not head outside into a green field or chill with your friends for the day? So environment is big. And then how do you calculate the perfect THC dosage? It's time to calculate the perfect dose. The first thing you should check is the percentage of THC present in the strain you use. Most weed strains contain between 15 and 20% of THC when grown properly, while weaker or poorly grown cannabis might have around 10%. In order to make it simple, we'll take a 10% THC content as an example. 1 gram of cannabis makes 1,000 milligrams with a total content of 100 milligrams THC. Now you'll need to calculate the THC dose per serving. To do it, you have to divide the amount of THC in your recipe by the number of servings. So let's suppose you make canna butter with a cup of butter and 5 grams of average quality weed. Multiply 5 by 100, so you know that you'll have 500 milligrams of THC in the butter. If you used half the cup of butter to make the cookies, and you made 25 cookies, then divide that by the number of servings, and you'll know each serving contains about 10 milligrams of THC. Simple, right? But that's making an assumption about the strength of your, so there's a lot of
variables, but at least it's
variables.
a guesstimate.
Yeah. And then doses and effects. A beginner or a smaller sized person's THC dose should be around 1 to 10 milligrams. An intermediate user, about 10 to 20 milligrams. And an experienced THC dosage ranges between 20 and 50 milligrams or more, depending on the desired effects. There are different types of effects you can commonly get with different doses. A small dose of 1 to 2.5 milligrams is recommended for first-time users and microdosers. It'll produce some mild relief of pain, stress, and anxiety, as well as focus and creativity improvement. When taking between 2.5 and 15 milligrams of THC, symptoms of pain relief will get stronger, euphoric feelings will rise, and you might feel altered perceptions and impaired coordination. This is a recommended dose for a patient with persistent problems, people dealing with sleeping problems, or sociable people. People who take THC doses between 15 and 30 milligrams are usually medical patients who develop a higher tolerance or simply regular consumers. At this point, perception and body coordination will be evidently affected, as well as a big euphoric sensation will be awakened. Lastly, anywhere from 30 milligrams and higher is only recommended for extremely experienced THC users or medical patients who require high doses. Feelings of euphoria will be extreme at this stage. Coordination and perception will be more altered, and perhaps some side effects such as rapid heart rates. Now that you've successfully calculated your THC dose, there are some do's and don'ts. So we go through this all the time when we talk about edibles. Take a small amount.
Start low and go slow.
Wait. Eat some food because you need fats to break down the THC and for the THC to kick in. And just be calm. You'll eventually feel it. So don't mix it with other drugs. I always say if you're new to cannabis, let cannabis be the only thing you're consuming that's going to alter you. Don't drink and consume. Get familiar with cannabis alone, and then go back to incorporating drinking in with it once you're familiar with it. Drink water and don't get too hyped. I think sometimes people think like this big crazy thing is going to happen when they smoke, and it's not. It's not big and crazy unless you have too much.
It's nice.
Mr. Weedman can get a little crazy if he has too much sativa.
I love getting crazy. You just don't allow me.
So this article goes into cooking and scaling down doses. We'll post it. There's a lot of information here about cooking with it and dosing. So we'll share.
Because sharing is caring.
That's right.
That's the end of the show, Mrs. Weedman.
It is?
It is. You ended it.
I closed the show.
You closed it out.
It out.
You do so well when you close it out, too.
Yeah.
Talking about edibles and being the mom you have in you. Take care of yourself when you eat an edible. It's like a commercial, a mom commercial. Take care of yourself, my weed family out there in the world, because I'll take care of you.
Weed will take care of you.
That's it. Mrs. Weedman's edibles will take care of you. When was the last time you made some edibles?
I was just going to say.
You haven't made cushy rolls in a hot
minute.
minute. You need to make some cushy rolls. We got a shit ton of butter you haven't made. I got
to make some stuff.
I got like 4 pounds of butter, I think.
Dang.
We haven't. It's frozen in
It's time
fridge.
to get cooking.
Yeah, good looking. I need some cushy rolls in my life. I'm tired of eating gummies all the time. I need some chocolatey goodness. Mrs. Weedman, you got anything else to say?
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
Nope.
You got high off that strain?
I'm still high.
Are you? I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm going to smoke some more, but not that one. I'm going to go down now a notch. Down notch, I'm going down to the indica.
Sleepy.
I'm going sleep time. So, hey, everybody out in the world, Thank you for listening. Hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. We appreciate you all out there in the world. We love you all. Thank you. Be kind to one another out there. It's a crazy, crazy world right now. Be kind. Give somebody a hug if they need it. Give somebody a joint if they need it. Show some love, will ya? Shake hands, kiss babies, and give some hugs. That's what I always say, right?
Yeah. I think you've had some other choice
say
for it, but
something else,
that's
too.
good. I'm glad
Yeah.
that you've removed
I
that.
removed that one.
That's good.
If you ever meet me in person, you want to know what I used to say, I'll be happy
No.
to tell you.
It's awful.
For some. Anyway, everybody out in the world, we love you. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puffing away.
Puff, puff, pass.